Ralithar Renar is here, making a video's response to Furry Logic 5, Acceptance and Obliviousness, by Paxilrose. Now, I'm going to try to keep this as succinct as possible, but it's still going to take a moment to tramp through, so bear with me. When I originally saw this video, it seemed somewhat damning. Excuse me. However, after verifying the facts a little bit, I came to realize that the context and, in fact, the thrust of the facts were massively different. But here, let me go through this a little bit more in depth. The whole issue of tolerance in the fandom, the controversy behind that, saying that intolerance will not be tolerated, which is, of course, hypocritical. Now, I understand where Paxilrose is coming from. He has a very limited interaction with the fandom and a very limited scope of that interaction. He has strong feelings on the issue, and he trolls furries. Additionally, he deals with furries primarily on the internet, primarily in drama-soaked sectors, and knows very few personally or in real life. Me, however, though obviously I gotta be a little bit biased because I am a furry myself, I think I've proved that I'm much less biased than just about everyone from both sides over the course of my YouTube history. I've also had 6+ years in the fandom, 4 of which were primarily online, and the last 2 have been increasingly offline as well. I've interacted with furries many a time in many a way, both online, regardless of whether it been forums, chats, or games, and offline regardless of whether it be events, just hanging out, or being personally friends with them. I can honestly tell you that furries are more tolerant than most other groups out there. I can honestly tell you that this tolerance has a limit. When he says intolerance will not be tolerated in his quote, I will tell you how this applies to the fandom. This means that guy that walks around and bludgeons others with his opinion has no place with us. Get the fuck out. You can hold your own opinion if you want. We'll even discuss it occasionally. An example being, we had a baby fur at Texas Renaissance Festival. We discussed it for a bit until it became, very obvious that one of the members, perhaps maybe 2, had stances on this to where not only were they not open whatsoever, but they were going to shove their opinion down other people's throats and cause issues. Now, regardless of your view on baby furs, personally, it's not my cup of tea whatsoever. They harm nobody. It's an act performed between 2 adults, 2 willing adults. Pure preference. If you want to make your own holy crusade on that issue, you will do so without the support of us. Because while you are right to have your opinion, we are right to have ours too, and when you start forcing yours down our throat, we lose our right to hold an opinion. That is the distinction. However, if you want to disapprove of it, that's quite fine. You will not get blacklisted for having a different opinion. Also, something else that will get you blacklisted from the furry fandom, immorality. If you're immoral, or if you cause drama for no particular reason, you're blacklisted. That's the long and short of it. Respectable furries will not deal with someone that's going to cause drama for the sake of drama and be immoral. The downside of this is that these blacklisted people, which there's really not that many of them, but they all collect into their own little subgroups. And then these much smaller subgroups typically are much more vocal, unfortunately, and give us a bad name as a whole. That's the whole situation on tolerance and intolerance. We are more tolerant, but be realized that your opinion is an opinion, and don't be immoral. Don't cause drama for no particular reason. You won't be blacklisted. Simple as that. Now, what people think is a more damning issue here is Softpaw magazine. Now, I do want to go on a short tangent here to say, okay, underage material, most certainly immoral. Unfortunately, due to the nature of Softball magazine, it rides kind of an ethical gray area. While I personally am completely against it, it is underage material. However, it's completely fantasy. It cannot even be acted out in real life. As such, it's really kind of hard to say if it is in fact reality, moral or immoral. But my view on it is that it's unacceptable. Moving on, he says that the WikiFur article on it does not have any negative information about it. However, when I checked the WikiFur article on it, there's this blue box on the page. What this box says is, this article is phrased like an advertisement. As such, it needs to be cleaned up to meet WikiFur's quality of higher standards. What does this mean? Paxilrose points out that there is no negative information, and that it goes in depth on it. WikiFur itself has a problem with that, because it is obviously unduly biased. So that would seem to undermine his point completely. I mean, it doesn't have any negative on it, so obviously you support it. We don't like this article because it has nothing negative on it. It's phrased like an advertisement. Coming from the same area there. So, Paxilrose seems to agree with WikiFur on that one, but he just happens to, hey, that one was never there. Of course, it is also possible that it's been added since then, in which case, obviously, the fandom does have an issue with it after all. It just needs to be cleaned up by somebody. I might clean it up myself personally, considering I don't know when I'll get around to it, but I might do so personally. Going a little bit more in depth on this one, he goes into the Ursa Major Awards, where it was recommended. Alright, I'm going to go into something here. Ursa Major Awards, you pre-register, and then you vote later. This is just based on random voting, self-selected. In these awards, Softball magazine was recommended. It did not win, it did not place. This is from the very small segment of the fandom that even knows about the Ursa Major Awards. There's plenty that don't know about it whatsoever. And upon a closer look, 201 votes were tallied. There's 300 plus thousand people in the fandom. 200 votes. Can you do the math on what percentage of people that is? It runs the same significant chance of bias that most surveys do. You grab 2,000 people and then try to claim that that's a worldwide representation. And I think there's a certain number where you cap out over, where the chances of it being a statistical anomaly go down significantly. However, 200 most certainly is not. Especially 200 self-selected, because if one person votes, they have a good chance to tell other people in their same field about it and vote. Thus, I couldn't view, a 200 vote, regardless of whether it was positive or negative for the fandom. In this case, it's pretty neutral. Could be any accurate representation whatsoever. So, I mean, and that's about it. And I will go and say, just as extra information, the whole cub art issue is actually very controversial within the fandom.